Something strange is happening to you. Your body feels electric. Your emotions swing from ecstatic highs to painful depths. Time feels distorted. People don't understand what you're going through, and maybe neither do you. But deep down, you sense something ancient, powerful, awakening. Welcome to Kundalini Awakens, where we uncover the truths of Kundalini and more. What if I told you the power rising inside you isn't random? That it's been lying dormant your entire life, coiled at the base of your spine like a sleeping serpent, waiting for the right moment to rise. You're not broken. You're not going crazy. You're waking up. But here's the twist. Most people miss the signs. Or worse, they resist them, shut them down, or numb them into silence. And when that happens, the energy fights back. More intense, more chaotic, until it's impossible to ignore. This isn't just spiritual fluff or poetic metaphor. Cultures across the world, from ancient India to the mystery schools of Egypt, have warned us, once Kundalini stirs, your life will never be the same. You're about to find out why. Because by the end of this video, everything you thought you knew about your mind, body, and soul will be up for questioning. Especially when we hit sign number 4. Miss that one, and you might never understand why this is happening to you at all. But first, let's unravel what this force really is, beyond the symbols, beyond the myths, so you can finally see the truth behind your transformation. Imagine a coiled serpent, resting silently at the base of your spine. Not metaphorically, energetically. This is Kundalini, the primal life force, the raw, untapped current of consciousness itself. It's not a belief. It's an experience. And when it begins to move, nothing in your life stays the same. Every major spiritual tradition points to it in some form. In ancient Sanskrit texts, it's called Kundalini Shakti. In Christian mysticism, it's the Holy Spirit. In Chinese traditions, it mirrors the concept of Kai. Different names. Same fire. It begins at the root chakra, Muladhara, the center of survival, primal instincts, and physical grounding. When the Kundalini awakens, it doesn't politely knock. It surges. It pierces through layers of your being, chakra by chakra, burning away illusion, ego, and trauma like wildfire. And here's what most people don't get. It's not about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you've always been. Your truest self, before conditioning, before fear, before the noise. But here's the catch, and it's a big one. If this energy rises without preparation, it can be intense, even dangerous. That's why ancient yogis dedicated entire lifetimes to preparing the body and mind for this awakening. They knew the stakes. They knew the signs. And now, those signs are showing up in your life. You might think this all sounds abstract, theoretical, something for monks in the Himalayas or yogis in caves. But you'd be wrong. Kundalini doesn't care where you live, what job you have, or what you believe. When it's time, it's time. And the first signs, they're not dramatic. They're subtle, almost easy to miss. But once you see them, you can't unsee them. And once we reach number 4, you'll realize just how real this journey is. You're already on the path. Now let's see how deep it goes. It usually starts quietly. A strange restlessness. A sense that something's shifting beneath the surface, but you can't explain it. You might feel like shedding old habits, old friendships, old versions of yourself. No one told you to. You just know you need to. This is the beginning of the awakening. The calm before the storm. You might find yourself drawn to silence. Not because you're tired, but because the noise of everyday life suddenly feels unbearable. Crowded rooms, small talk, meaningless distractions, they start to feel heavy. Fake. You crave depth. You want truth. And nothing else satisfies. Your sensitivity spikes, not just emotionally, but energetically. You walk into a room and instantly sense the vibe. You feel people's emotions before they say a word. Your gut becomes louder than your mind. You know who to trust, who to walk away from. And often, you won't even understand why, but you follow it. Because something inside you is waking up. Your body starts to change, too. You might feel strange pulses in your spine, tingling at the crown of your head, heat rising up your back. Sometimes it's blissful. Sometimes it's unsettling. Doctors may find nothing. But, something's real. And then the synchronicities begin. Repeating numbers. Random encounters. Dreams that feel more like messages. You think of someone, and they call. You ask a question, and the answer shows up on a billboard. It's like the universe is whispering in your ear. You're not imagining it. You're being guided. But with all these signs, there's one that cuts deeper than the rest. The one most people ignore. Not because it's hidden, but because it challenges everything. That's sign number 4, and we're almost there. Before we get to that, look closer at what's happening in your mind, your heart, your inner world. Because the next phase, that's where the real unraveling begins. You wake up one morning and something feels off. Not wrong, but unfamiliar. It's like your thoughts aren't your own. Or maybe, for the first time, they aren't. You start questioning everything. Why am I doing this job? Why do I even believe the things I believe? Who am I? Really? It's not a midlife crisis. It's not depression. It's Kundalini beginning to tear through the layers of your identity. The false self is crumbling. Your emotions go wild. One moment, you feel an overwhelming love for all living things, so powerful it brings you to tears. The next, deep, rooted fear or sadness erupts out of nowhere. Childhood wounds, unresolved grief, ancient pain. It all rises. And here it is, sign number 4, your ego starts to panic. That voice in your head, the one that kept you small, afraid, in line, it starts screaming. It doesn't want to die. And that's exactly what's happening. The death of the ego, the unraveling of everything it built to protect you. But here's the paradox. It feels like breaking down, but it's actually breaking open. This is the most critical point in your awakening, and the most dangerous. Because many turn back here, and that freaks people out, especially those still living in the old story. But once this part hits, you can't go back, even if you try. And why would you? You're not losing your mind. You're finding your soul. And that's just the beginning. Because after the ego breaks, something else steps forward. Something timeless. Something real. Your dreams shift. They're no longer just random fragments or reflections of your day. They become vivid, cinematic, charged with symbols, messages, and people you've never met, yet somehow know. You wake up sweating, heart racing, feeling like you just returned from another world. Because maybe you did. This is where your subconscious begins to speak the language of the soul. Through archetypes, animals, ancestors, even gods and goddesses. These aren't hallucinations. They're activations. Kundalini isn't just rewiring your body. It's expanding your awareness across dimensions. Time becomes slippery. Some days move fast. Others stretch out endlessly. You say something, and it manifests. You think of a person, and they appear. You're dreaming during the day and awakening at night. The boundaries blur. And in these altered states, there's often a moment, a split second glimpse, where everything makes sense. You remember that you've done this before, that this awakening isn't your first, that you are part of something infinitely larger. But then the ego creeps back in, trying to make sense of it, trying to label it. Don't. This isn't meant to be understood. It's meant to be lived. You might start writing without knowing what you're writing. You might channel messages in your sleep. Or hear a voice, not outside of you, but deep within, that answers questions before you ask them. And this part, it can feel lonely. You're not imagining it. Most people around you won't get it. They're still asleep, still stuck in the matrix. You try to explain, and they look at you like you've lost it. So you stay quiet. You carry the shift in silence. But know this, you're not alone. Others are waking up too. Quietly. All over the world. And just like you, they're being pulled into something that goes beyond logic, beyond language, beyond reality as we've known it. And if this is happening to you, it means you're one of them. But this journey isn't done. Not yet. Because as the inner world cracks open, the outer world starts to respond. And that's where things get really strange. You start to notice patterns. Not just small ones, life-sized ones. You think it, and it happens. You ask, and the answer shows up in a conversation, a song lyric, a stranger's passing comment. You're in the middle of a thought and suddenly, the clock reads 11. 11. Again. And again. Repeating numbers. Animal encounters. Objects falling in your path. Everything starts to feel intentional. Like the universe isn't random anymore. Because it never was. You're not just living life. You're interacting with it. This is the emergence of synchronicity, your inner transformation creating ripples in the outer world. And the deeper your Kundalini rises, the faster the feedback loop becomes. You might walk away from things that once defined you. A job, a relationship, an identity. They start collapsing, one by one, not because you're failing, but because they were built on the old you, the unconscious you. And now, that version can't hold your truth anymore. And here's what no one tells you. This part can feel crazy. Like you're floating in a reality that keeps bending. Like the veil between the seen and unseen is wearing thin. You start to question, am I being guided or am I losing my mind? That confusion, it's part of the process. Because for the first time, your perception is shifting from horizontal to vertical, from linear time to infinite awareness. The old rules of cause and effect, they don't apply anymore. You're moving in a new frequency. And reality responds. You'll start to see through people. Not just what they say, but what they feel. Their masks. Their intentions. Their energy. You'll know when someone's lying, even if they don't. Your sensitivity becomes a superpower and a burden. Because now, you feel everything. But you weren't meant to carry it all. Just witness it. This is the point where many walk away. They want normal again. Stability. Certainty. But normal is gone. And deep down, you don't want it back. Because the chaos you're feeling, it's actually alignment. The breakdown of false reality. The construction of something real. And what's coming next? It's not all light. It's not all bliss. Because before you fully rise, you have to go through the one thing no one ever wants to talk about, the shadow. It hits when you least expect it. After the highs, after the synchronicities, after the bliss, you fall hard into the darkness. The light fades. The guidance disappears. You feel empty, confused, alone. This is the dark night of the soul. Your Kundalini has reached the layers you've buried for lifetimes. All the suppressed pain, shame, guilt, fear, it comes roaring to the surface. You might start questioning everything all over again. Was this real? Am I broken? Did I imagine it all? You didn't. This is part of the purge. The shadow is everything you've denied, rejected, and disowned, now demanding your attention. It's messy. It's raw. And it's absolutely necessary. Most people stop here. They run from it. Back to comfort. Back to distraction. But you're still watching. Still listening. That means something inside you knows. This isn't the end. This is the deepening. You might feel like you're dying. And in a way, you are. The final pieces of the false self are being burned off. This is spiritual death. And it's terrifying. But it's also sacred. Because once you face your shadow, once you stop running and actually sit with it, you begin to reclaim your power. Piece by piece. Truth by truth. And the energy that was trapped in that pain, it starts flowing upward. This is where your power stops being conceptual and starts becoming real. You begin to realize you are not your fear. You are not your trauma. You are not your past. You're the one who witnessed it all and survived. And when that truth hits you, everything changes. The light doesn't just return, it erupts. But here's the thing. Now that you've seen the shadow, now that you've survived the fire, you've got to learn how to carry this energy. Otherwise, it'll burn through you. Or worse, consume you. The next phase, it's not about more awakening. It's about mastering the energy you've already unlocked. You've made it through the fire. The illusions are gone. The masks are off. And now, you're standing in the raw truth of who you are. No filters, no fantasies, no fallback plans. But here's what nobody tells you about spiritual awakening. Enlightenment isn't floating above the world. It's learning how to walk through it while on fire. Because once the Kundalini rises, it doesn't just stay up in the clouds. It wants to anchor, to ground, to express itself through you. Not around your life, but inside it, through your relationships, your creativity, your choices, your voice. This is the integration phase, and it's where many stumble. You might be tempted to chase the high again, to seek the next mystical experience. But the real work, it's here, in the quiet, in the mundane, in learning how to exist in both worlds, the awakened one and the human one. Your nervous system needs to recalibrate. Your body needs rest. Your energy needs focus. Because if you're not grounded, that surge of power can short-circuit everything. Your relationships evolve. Some fall away, gently. Others explode. You stop chasing people who can't meet you where you are. You learn to hold space for others and for yourself. You stop speaking to be understood and start listening to understand. And the biggest shift, you stop seeking because you realize you are what you were looking for. Your intuition becomes your GPS. Your body becomes your temple. Your presence becomes your power. And for the first time, you don't just believe in magic. You are it. This isn't a return to the old life. This is the start of a new one. A life not based on survival, but on alignment. But even now, even here, there's one last thing to understand. One final truth that ties everything together. And once you hear it, it's going to change the way you see every sign, every struggle, every second of this awakening. Everything that's happened to you, every tremble, every tear, every moment you thought you were losing your mind, it was never random. It was a calling, a remembrance. You didn't find Kundalini. It found you. And it's been waiting patiently for you to be ready. That's the final truth. This isn't about awakening Kundalini. It's about Kundalini awakening you. All along, it's been orchestrating the unraveling. The quiet whispers, the breakdowns, the breakthroughs, they were all part of the same current pulling you back to your essence. And now you see it. You're not here by accident. You didn't stumble into this video. You didn't click out of curiosity. You were guided because the energy rising within you needed to be seen, validated, remembered. You are not broken. You are not lost. You are becoming. And the signs, they were never just signs. They were invitations to let go, to rise, to return. Because what's awakening in you, it's not just energy. It's the divine itself waking up to itself through you. So breathe, ground, stay with it. You were never meant to walk this path asleep. And now, you never will again. If this spoke to something deep in you, that's not coincidence. That's resonance. You're starting to remember what you've always known, that you are more than a name, a job, a story. You are a living conduit of consciousness, of power, of purpose. And now that your Kundalini is rising, there's no going back. But this isn't the end. It's the beginning of a completely different way of being. One that doesn't ask you to be perfect, only present. One that doesn't promise comfort, but delivers truth. One where your life stops being a series of reactions and starts becoming a conscious creation. There will still be storms, doubts, shadows, but now you have the awareness to move through them instead of being consumed by them. Because once you awaken, your pain becomes your compass. Your triggers become your teachers. And your intuition, that's no longer a whisper. It's your command. So stay curious. Stay open. You're not meant to have all the answers. You're meant to feel your way through the unknown, one step at a time, fully alive. And when it gets hard, when the energy surges and your ego screams and everything feels too much, just remember, this is the path of the awakened. It's not easy, but it's real. And that's what you came here for.